it's Nina Marie for Simon Says Stamp, and welcome to a Not a Card project. I love creating non-card projects, which is such a fun way to kind of expand your creativity and try new things. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can make a vignette box with found objects. My found objects are going to be seashells. I live by the beach, so I have amassed quite a collection of these over the years. But if you don't have seashells, you can incorporate something else as your element for your vignette box. But I'm going to show you how you can mix in some ephemera and some other fun little embellishments to really pull this whole piece together. So I'm using a Tim Holtz Vignette Display Panel. This is from his Idea-ology collection. This is a really nice size. It's about 9 by 9, and that allows you to have a lot of space to work with. As you can see, I have 9 different seashells situated within this box, and I'm going to be painting them a bright assortment of colors. So I've picked out some distress paints that I had in my stash. As I go along, I did kind of tweak the colors just a little bit, but this gives you an idea. I picked out a rainbow of colors that I'm going to incorporate throughout this piece. I'm going to paint them first, however, with some white gesso. These shells are different colors, and depending upon the paint, you might see some of these colors through it. So I wanted to make sure I got a really nice opaque base to start. So the white gesso is going to allow me to get that nice bright white finish on each of these shells. I'm painting them on top of a grip mat. This is a Tim Holtz grip mat, and it's fantastic for holding your pieces down a little bit more easily as you're working on them. And then the best part is that it cleans up real easily. So if you get any paint on it, it wipes off with no problem. I painted all of my shells with the white gesso. While they dried, I'm going to add some spray stain to my vignette box just to add some different weathering elements here. I wanted it to have a variation of wood tones across this piece. And as much as the wood tone is beautiful on this display panel, I wanted certain sections of it to be a little darker, not the whole thing. So you're going to see I'm feathering in this spray stain. This is walnut stain, and I really love this color. It's one of my absolute favorites. So I'm just going to use that to apply some of this here and there, and I'm trying to leave portions of the middle a little bit lighter, but that's going to give me some contrast that's going to really offset these beautiful colors that we're adding to the seashells. Now for the outside of the box, I'm going to go straight to it with paint. I could have covered it with some white gesso, but I actually wanted it to have a weathered look, and I want to be able to see some of that wood through the paint. So I'm actually going to take speckled egg and paint directly onto the vignette box with that color. I really like that you can see the wood then through the paint because distress paints have a slight transparent finish to them. Now on the frame of the vignette box, I'm going to actually make that a little bit darker. So this is some Uncharted Mariner, and I'm just going to paint that along the edge of the box. And it is going to pick up some of that lighter speckled egg here and there that are on the edges, and that's okay. I like that variegated look. But if you don't want to have some lighter areas across your painting, you'll just want to make sure that the sides of your box are dry before you move on to the frame. So then once I finished coloring my display panel, my shells were ready to start painting. So now I'm going to start bringing in all those fun colors and cover each one of them with the paints that I've selected. Now I am going to add 2 coats to each of these shells, and in the case of the lightest color, that saltwater taffy there, I actually used 3 coats for that one, just because I wasn't getting the intensity of the coverage that I was looking for. But I went along and just covered each of these with the different colors of distress paints that I have here. I'm working on that grip mat to help me keep the shells somewhat in place as I'm working on them. I really love how bright and colorful these are, but if you didn't want to have a rainbow assortment of colors, you could easily swap out these colors for things that you prefer. But check this out, isn't this looking cool? I'm going to hang each of these shells from the vignette box. So I've pulled out some vignette hardware, and I'm using a mix of both the hooks and also the little nails. I'm using my tiny hammer from Tim Holtz to help me hammer those into place, but the hooks are really easy. You just kind of push them into the vignette box and then start twisting to screw them in. So it holds up really nicely then inside of this vignette box. They're nice and sturdy. So once I have all of my hardware pieces attached onto the vignette box, so I've got 1 for each shell, then I'm going to start working on adhering some twine to the seashells. I decided I wanted to hang the shells with the flat side facing up, so that way the shells are hanging down from the hook. I I could have hung them right side up, but at the same time, I also wanted to be able to hang other things too, and I felt like this made the most sense in the design that I'm creating. Now, to adhere the twine to my seashells, I'm just cutting a length about approximately how long I think I need it, and then just putting some hot glue over top of it inside of the seashell to sandwich it in place. This will hold really, really nicely. But this is looking so cute, and it's going to hang really nicely from our little hooks and nails. So for the hooks, you just want to open them up with some pliers so that way you can slide the twine through. But as you can see, I do have a few shells that I felt were a little too long. The purple one and the green one especially were the ones that were giving me the most trouble. So what I'm going to do to rectify that and make it easy on myself is I'm just going to kind of loop some of that extra twine down into the backside of the shell, and then take my hot glue and just put a little bit of glue over top of it to sandwich it onto the pile of hot glue that's already there. And that will work really nicely for tweaking the length of my twine. I'd rather have it be too long than it too short. So at this point, I'm ready to work on adding some additional decorative elements to the top of the vignette tray. I want something that I could potentially hang this vignette box from, and I thought it would be so cool to have a piece of driftwood nailed to the top of my vignette tray. I found this piece of driftwood on the beach and it's beautiful. I love all of the old holes that are in it. So I'm going to go ahead and actually use those little tiny nails with the hammer to hammer that little piece of driftwood onto my vignette tray, because this driftwood piece is quite thin. So because it's not too thick, the nails can go through both the driftwood and into the vignette tray, and it holds securely. I am leaving the nails up just a little bit so I can tuck some twine underneath the nail heads and tie that twine to it. That way, that will give me a loop that I can then hang from a nail or a fastener on my wall if I want to, or I can just sit this on my shelf. But it's giving me an option of how I want to end up displaying this. So once I tied one knot, then I figured out how long I would want the twine to loop. And so then that way I'll just cut that length down and tie the other end into a simple overhand knot and trim up the ends just so that way they're a little cleaner. I do like having a little bit of twine hanging down from the knot, so I won't cut right up to the knot itself. I'll actually leave like a little 1/4 to a 1/2 inch of twine still hanging down. But this looks so cute with that fun piece of driftwood. It looks like a really neat piece. You could also do the same thing with a handle. So at this point, I'm trying to figure out what embellishments I want to add onto my vignette tray. So I'm picking out some fun ephemera pieces from the Tim Holtz Idea-ology collection. I'm also picking out some cute little adornments. This one's a key. For the key, I thought it would be cute to have that in blue, so I'm actually just going to color that with a little bit of alcohol ink. And what I like to do is just put a little bit of alcohol ink into a little cup and then twirl the little key around until it's completely covered. While that dries on a paper towel, then I'm also going to color in some additional adornments. These are Tim Holtz Optic Frames, and I also have these little word tags, which are adorable. I'm coloring both of these with Foundry wax. So the Foundry wax is something that you can heat up with a heat tool to give a beautiful metallic finish on your pieces. So this is so easy to use. I'm coloring half of this optic frame first before I do the other half. I'll color it with the Foundry wax. I use my finger, but you could use a brush. And then I take my heat tool and just go ahead and heat set that. And it's kind of like embossing powder. It's dull at first, but then once you add the heat, it starts to shine up and get a little bit more of a glossy metallic finish. That way you know the reaction has happened. So I'm doing that for both the optic frame and also the little word tag. I'm letting the optic frame cool a little bit before I move on to coloring the other half of it. These little metal pieces do get hot pretty quickly, so you just want to be careful you don't burn yourself. But the Foundry wax goes back over top of other areas really easily because it liquefies. It melds together really nicely. So as I color the other half of this, you're never going to be able to see where I stopped and started again. So it really gives a nice finish to this adornment. So this is my layout. As you can see, I have picked out all of the ephemera pieces I want for my piece, as well as some other additional found objects. I've got some sea glass and some pottery that I have also found on the beach. I'm going to attach my key to the middle seashell. I'm hanging it from the same nail using a piece of chain that I had in my stash. Then I'm going to add some distressing to some of these ephemera pieces just to make them look worn, like they were found a long time ago. Something that has been sitting and collecting over the years, which I think is so cool. So to make these ephemera pieces more realistic, I'm taking some walnut stain distressing and a brush and just carefully coloring certain sections of the pieces to give them that worn, distressed feel. Now I'm also going to tear some of these pieces and give them some folds because it really adds to the authenticity of these pieces being found objects that have been sitting around for a very long time. So I love how all of these little pieces come together. For the ephemera pieces, I'm just gluing them directly to the vignette tray with some liquid glue. This will hold really nicely with the Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Glue. It's a very strong adhesive and it's great for not just paper, but also embellishment products too. So the Optic Frame, I'm gluing this little piece of ephemera that I roughly cut to be the same size as the frame itself. And that's going to look super cute tucked around the seashell here. And if you can tell, I picked out pieces that were color coordinated with the shell that it's sitting with, just to help with that rainbow feel. Since we've got so much going on, it makes the project more cohesive if you keep the liked colors together. And so then for all of these other found objects, I'm gluing these down with some of that hot glue, just to make sure they have a really good bond, because they are a bit heavy. That little word tag is so darling. I love how tiny he is. So for this, I want to tie onto that seashell that's on the bottom left. And so for this, I'm just going to take a little bit of thin twine and wrap that around the tag and then tie that into a knot so that way it can hang from the cute little hook that the seashell is also hanging from. And then I realized I did not add some distressing to these Foundry wax colored pieces, which was something I wanted to do and totally forgot to do until the end. So I'm very carefully coming through with a walnut stain distress crayon. It's one of my favorite ways to distress some of these more dimensional adornment items. And I'm just applying that onto them and then just buffing it with my finger. And then that is going to complete this vignette tray, which looks so cool. I am so excited with how it turned out. It is exactly how I envisioned it, with the colorful shells and all the little found pieces, and then some of our fun little embellishments such as the ephemera pieces and little adornments. To top it all off, that cute little piece of driftwood at the top for the hanger really makes this box look super cool. Like I said, if you don't have a piece of driftwood, you could use a handle. That would be super fun, or some sort of really cool hardware. And don't forget, if you're not into seashells, but you want to create something similar, think of some other found object that you could repeat across a project and then create something really cool that you can display in your home, in your craft space, or give as a gift to somebody you love. I hope that you were inspired by today's project. I was so excited to share it with you, so I really, truly hope you enjoyed it. I can't wait to come back and share more with you all. But until then, I hope you have a wonderful day, and thanks so much for watching.
I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at SimonSaysStamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.